The big one is tell them what to do, not what not to do. So instead of saying don't call out, say put up your hand. Okay, so think about how you can phrase things in a positive way. The reason for that is you're actually telling them how to fix a mistake. When you're using those words, when you're saying no running in the hallways, aren't you better off saying walk in the hallways? When you say don't scribble on your page, aren't you better saying cross it out by putting 2 lines? Like tell them what to do. Don't just keep going, don't scribble on your page, don't run, blah, 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 okay? Hi everyone, welcome to the Sue Larkey podcast. As I always say, you have to embrace difference to make a difference. Let's dive into today's podcast. Today, I want to dive in deep into how to engage disengaged students, whether that's at home or school. Parents, I believe at home your children do need downtime, but they also need to engage in family activities and whether you're playing games to teach social skills, engaging in things outside the home, no matter what environment you're in, whether it's preschool, primary, post-school options, work, all of us need to look at increasing engagement and participation. Now, that is always my passion. But of course, we get students who are disengaged, and whether it's behaviour, whether it's passive children who just sit there and look out the window, engagement is, across the whole spectrum of kids that I work with. But over the years, I have found that there's a number of reasons, and really it all comes back to what the famous psychologist Professor Skinner identified as the 5 main obstacles to learning. So today, we're going to dive in deep to those 5 main obstacles for learning and the strategies I put in place. Now, I am going to be referring quite a lot to my books, and many of you have them, and it's a good reminder, please get them off your shelf. It's a good chance to jump in. So I might be giving you a couple of ideas, but my books will have 10, 15, 20 more ideas to try, because remember, strategies wear out. Not every strategy works for everybody. And to know someone with autism, not to know everyone with autism. They might have autism and ADHD, a comorbidity. They might be, a teenager or a young child, so please remember, just adapt the strategies. But I highly recommend, if you've got my Ultimate Guide to School and Home, which is my #1 bestseller, and I'm sure lots of you have it, page 49 has some great tips on engaging disengaged students. Actually goes over a few pages. And then I'm going to be referring today to my red and blue teacher assistant book, which lots of schools own as well. And I have teachers who get those books because they don't have a teacher assistant, or they need more specific strategies and tips to help the student engage. So Skinner identifies 5 obstacles for learning. #1, fear of failure. #2, lack of direction. #3, lack of clarity in the direction. #4, positive reinforcement is not used enough. And #5, the task is not broken down into small enough steps. Now, when I look at those, I go for a student with autism spectrum or ADHD. If we look at the diagnostic criteria, guess what? All of those things are part of the diagnostic criteria for many of my students. So it's really about how do we adapt and put in place strategies to overcome those things. So many of these things you would have heard me talk about in my courses. If you haven't joined me for a course, I highly recommend you look at all the options and different ways of learning. You can join me face-to-face. I've got lots of locations coming up. Check my website where I'm coming, the Making a Difference tour. Or you can do live virtual, which is you can watch from anywhere. You can join me on Zoom. Now, it's not like other Zoom sessions. People come away from my Zoom sessions going, that was the fastest day. I learnt so much. It was so engaging. I use a different platform on top of Zoom. So although you're watching on Zoom, anyway, join me on the day. If you've done my free webinars, they're just like that, but a whole day. The feedback is amazing. It's so positive. People love it. And I send you a show bag if you're in Australia with like your handout and sensory toys and lollies and fun little toys to enjoy the day. So make sure you sign up, go to my website and have a look if I'm coming to you, whether you want to see me face to face or live virtual. If you're more, no, I like to learn at my own pace. Of course, there's my online on-demand course too. So there's 3 different ways to learn. And I like to appeal to different learning styles. And the fact we're talking about engagement and participation, this is a classic as a teacher where you're always thinking what works best for different people. Now, the people who like the online on-demand, I guess, are people who like to stop, pause, reflect. Or for me, I like to watch online courses when I'm actually cooking. I use it more as a multitasking, and that's fine too. Whatever works for you, I hope you can join me for one of the ways to learn. But if you have done my course or any of my courses, this podcast is a really good reminder of many of the key strategies that I dive into on the day. So if I'm talking about things you're not sure about, then maybe you want to join me for a step-by-step course. When people come to my workshops who have listened to my podcast, and please, if you are a podcast listener, come up and say hello. It's always awkward for me to say hello or go, oh, if you're a podcast listener, come and get a photo or whatever, or if you want a photo with me for your school or to put on your social media. On Friday, someone came straight in and she's like, oh, I'm so excited to meet you. Can we have a photo? And it made my day because I'm always nervous to start those days. And when someone comes in and goes, can I have a photo? It just makes me feel good. It makes me feel like, yay, I'm not just sitting here talking to myself. So I will be disappointed if you don't come up to me because I can't go up to you. I don't know who listens and who doesn't. So make sure you come up. Let me know you listen to the podcast. We'll have a photo together, whether you want to use it on social media or just have it for yourself. I love doing that. A school recently put up a post with a group of them, and I just love seeing that, of sharing the information and knowledge that you learn from me, but also letting people know that we've caught up, which I love too. So look forward to seeing you soon. Make sure you stop me and have a photo, even if it's in the street. I love seeing people. So we're going to do a deep dive now into really understanding how to engage disengaged students by overcoming the 5 things that Skinner identified. Number 1, fear of failure. How many of you have kids who hate making mistakes? We know kids with ASD have a fear of failure. And how to encourage independence, because many of my students, what it is, a fear of failure so they won't have a go without you. Whereas when I have a class of 30 kids, most kids, I set them to task and they get on with it. Some of my kids can't even get started. So in my big blue book for teacher assistants on page 34 to 38, there are heaps of ideas to help with that. But I'm going to dive in deep. I'm just taking the top 5 for each of those. So in the how to encourage independence, top 5 tips to encourage independence. 1, actually give them space to have a go. What people sometimes do is don't allow them the processing or take up time, and then they assume they're not working and jump in. So I want you to get better at looking on their face, knowing when are they actually thinking about the task and processing and when are they actually off task, because you'd be amazed. Some of my kids, just give them some time and space and they will get there. But us constantly jumping in, they actually become prompt dependent, but also don't have a go. So please give them a bit of space, give them a bit of time. But then when they do something, don't constantly correct them. Then they get anxious. You're constantly correcting. You don't have to correct every mistake. I'm constantly learning. School is about learning. How about rewarding them having a go? How about going, you don't have to correct every spelling mistake. Just pick the ones that really matter. Otherwise they might end up with red crosses all over their page. How would you like it if I walked around correcting you all the time? That's how I always think. Put yourself in the learner's shoes. And any of you that know me know I'm a really bad speller. I don't know. I have never, ever been a very good speller, but I use spell check. So in the future, will they just be like me and use spell check and Grammarly? Choose your battles. Except that some days they will need more help than others. I think this is the hardest part with encouraging independence. But I have learned over the years, and when I run my workshops and we talk about the phases of meltdowns, people do know the days that you can choose your battles. And they're the days, like I have some days I will stretch and push a student, and other days I'm going to give them more support. This is true for all of us. You think of yourself. You have days you're like on fire, knock everything out. Other days you're sort of treading water, and some days you get nowhere, but that's okay. Yesterday I had this plan to do some jobs that needed doing that I didn't get done over the summer holidays. I'm sure some of you have had that. And I went off to Bunnings. I ended up spending an hour and a half at Bunnings. So by the time I got home, I had no time to do the jobs. Okay. But now I've got all the equipment to hook in next time I go to do those jobs. Not sure when that is, but anyway, I'm halfway there. But remember, sometimes that happens. There are good and bad days. I had one of those days yesterday that I got wandering around Bunnings, looking at things, distracted. But now I'm prepared for the next day. And I find that the fluctuation. Number 4, get the students to identify areas of difficulty for themselves. Can I really get you to teach them this from a young age? Because often in secondary and the secondary school people listening, they don't want someone to sit with them. So I like to get them to look at their sheet and identify areas. Those of you who have done my courses, that's the traffic light system we've talked about, but really looking at which bits can you do, can't you do, and get them to say, this is what I need help with, rather than you jumping in and helping them with everything. And number 5, reward having a go. Like really reward them for just being on task and having a go. It's so important. Don't constantly catch them off task. Try and catch them on task. Reward how much they have got done, not what they haven't got done. A bit like I'm saying with Bunnings. I'm saying, well, Sue, you got to Bunnings, tick. You got the gear you need, tick. Okay, you didn't do the job, but you're actually halfway there. So just keep it in perspective. So fear of failure, though. Part of fear of failure is my kids who aren't very independent. But part of fear of failure for many of my students is actually a fear of making mistakes. Now, I have done a whole podcast on a fear of making mistakes. But just remember, many of my students don't like having a go because they hate making mistakes. And that's called cognitive flexibility. And many of them have a one-track mind. They've only got one solution. So therefore, if they make a mistake, they haven't got a plan B. So make sure you listen to my podcast on Mr. Perfects and perfectionism. But just remember, one of the characteristics associated with this inflexible is being less able to learn from their mistakes. Whereas the rest of us make a mistake and we learn from it, kids on the spectrum make a mistake and they're not really sure what else to do, and so they'll make the same mistake over and over again. So what do you need to do? Make sure you break tasks down into small achievable tasks. So instead of them seeing this big assessment task, they might see little steps. Instead of them seeing a massive big puzzle in the early years, you might put 3 or 4 pieces in and they only have to do the last few. Break it down so they can experience finishing and success. Too many people don't shorten the task for them. So make it short, but let them experience finishing, because people on the spectrum like to finish. So you might write the first half of the story of what I did on the weekend or a reflection, and they do the second half. Now, some of you are going, oh, Sue, I don't have time. I know you don't have time to do that all the time, but maybe they can say it verbally and then write the second half. Be flexible how you get them to do things. The other thing I really find with making mistakes is writing social scripts to help them understand it's okay to make mistakes. And those of you who have my developing social skills, there's one on page 72 you can just print out and use. The other one I'd really love you to do over the next week is model making mistakes, like make mistakes socially. Oh, hello. I've forgotten your name. What's your name again? That's okay. Everyone forgets names. Oh, today is Friday. Oh, no, it's Thursday. That's right. Everyone forgets the day of the week. Really model making mistakes. Oh, I forgot to bring my coffee from the staff room. That's okay. I can get it later. Just throughout the day, talk about things. I can't find my car keys. Forgot to charge my phone. Just talk about mistakes and how you correct them. The big one is tell them what to do, not what not to do. So instead of saying, don't call out, say, put up your hand. Okay, so think about how you can phrase things in a positive way. The reason for that is you're actually telling them how to fix a mistake. When you're using those words, when you're saying no running in the hallways, aren't you better off saying walk in the hallways? When you say don't scribble on your page, aren't you better saying cross it out by putting 2 lines? Like tell them what to do. Don't just keep going, don't scribble on your page, don't run, blah, 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 okay? And again, reward having a go. That is going to come up a lot in our barriers and how to engage disengaged students. Reward having a go. Doesn't matter if they get it wrong. At least they've had a go. Please, engagement isn't perfectionism. As long as they're having a go. Otherwise, they'll get another syndrome I call why bother syndrome. There's no point doing it. I'm going to get it wrong. There's no point going it. I'm never going to finish. There's no point doing it. The teacher will just tell me I haven't done enough anyway. Please have a think about that and watch out for it, because those kids who are from year 2 and above, I get this group who just can't be bothered. I'm not going to hand in my homework because I'm not going to get it perfect. Really just reward, yay, you handed in your homework. That's the goal. I don't care what they did as long as they handed it in. Keep it in perspective. Okay. Number 2 is lack of direction. Now, in my teacher assistant big red book, I have some great tips on starting the day, finishing the day, and setting them up during the day. I think a lot of my kids who have trouble getting going need help setting up the day, setting up their work, and then finishing the day, making sure they've got the right equipment, making sure things are in place. But for me, the key thing with directions is use visuals, routines, timers, and schedules. And I'll link to all those podcasts in my blogs because they're like 30-minute podcasts and podcasts on their own. So visuals, so they can refer back to them and gives them directions. If you have lack of direction, if you've got a map or a visual, you know what to do, right? Routine. A routine actually helps the student know what's coming next, gives them direction. Timers tells them how long they've got to do the task. And remember, ADHD kids will do their best work in the last 5 minutes. So if you're not using a timer, you're never getting their best work. So that 5 minute gives them direction. It's 5 minutes till we're finished. Woo, get it down. So lack of direction is overcome by using timers. And last but not least, lack of direction is overcome by using schedules. And in that schedule, make sure they have rewards and things they're looking forward to, just like you have things in your day you're looking forward to. So make sure if you've never listened to those podcasts, you go back and listen to them. They're full of tips. Make sure you have a look at that. Skinner's third one was lack of clarity in direction. And for me, that's your top tips for keeping on task. So in my big blue book, page 34, make sure you get that out. There's like 12 tips. I'm just going to give you 7 quick ones. Number 1 is an interesting one. Take time to observe the student and the environment to identify the barriers to completing the tasks. Just stop. Sit back and watch. Gosh, they take a lot of time finding the right page in their book. Let's put a bookmark in because they're a kid who flicks through every page. 1, 2, 3. Yep, let's put a bookmark in. They never have a pen. Let's give them a pen. What's the educational outcome? They do the work or they bring a pen. They forget to take their homework home. Well, could we make sure we email it? Can we use a Google Doc where they don't need to remember to take it home? It can be on their computer. What are the barriers to completing tasks? And often I forget to just sit back and watch. Teacher assistants, can I ask you, and angels? Thank you everyone who did my teacher assistant course last year. Oh my goodness, so many of you did the course. It just blew my mind. You guys are amazingly committed to these kids, and thank you for doing that teacher assistant course. I was really blown away at the end of the year how many people had do the course. And just there's so many tips, and people tell me that course just saves them so much time and frustration because they really can come away with practical tips. In fact, some people tell me they learnt more on that than their Cert 3, but that's another story. Anyway, back to this. So teacher assistants, really sit back and think, what are the barriers? So when you're not there, the systems are in place. You're not there all day normally. So what are the things you can put in place to support them? Number 2 is adapt the tasks before the activity. So remember I was saying they're going to record the start of their story and then write the last bit. Well, have that ready as a visual. You're going to do 10 minutes recording and 10 minutes writing. You can have that as a visual. What are the things you can do before? The puzzle. Remember, you're going to put all the puzzle pieces in and they're just going to put the last 3 in. You can have that ready before. Now, I know I mentioned this in the independence. Encourage responses whether right or wrong, do not constantly correct. The best way to keep them on task is not constantly correct them. But remember, if they make a mistake, that's going to take up a lot of their energy fixing it. Do you care about the mistake or do you want them to get them down on paper? Like really ask yourself, does it matter there's a spelling mistake? Does it matter there's something wrong? They're getting some words and thoughts down. Number 4, plan to have textbooks out and show them examples of work. Show them what is required. Sometimes seeing an example of what's possible inspires us. Show them what is possible. Show them some completed work. I highly recommend teacher assistants, whenever you do work with a student, take a photo or keep a file. So if you've got a student next year doing that work, you've got it there on hand to show them examples of what is possible. Some of my kids who are visual, seeing what they have to do really inspires them, like it did with my Sarah on Friday. Now, number 5, give a preventive break during the task. Remember, if it's a half an hour task, most of my kids can't sit and concentrate for half an hour. So we might do 15 minutes work and then get up and go and get something and come back. We might do 15 minutes work, get up and do 10 jumping jacks. Think about what are the breaks, or go to the toilet, get a drink. Now, some of my kids, they can't then refocus. So again, to know someone with autism is not to know autism, but think about how you can break up tasks, particularly parents for homework. You can't have them sit down for 3 hours to do homework. So personally, with my kids, we have a really early dinner, like 6 o'clock. And some people go, really? But they leave home at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I do an early dinner, because that's a really good break to have food, bit of socialising. We often play a family game after dinner. And I've found in high school that works really well if you can do an early dinner. And often I'll do like an early cucumber tomato, like an early snack before that. Just if they're studying, taking them up that crunch and sip equivalent can be really, really helpful. So have a think about that. Number 6 is limit their choices. For keeping them on task, if there's too many choices, they'll swap from one thing to another to another. They'll start reading one book, move to another book. They'll start one topic, move to another topic. They'll start looking at one YouTube clip, move to another. Have a think. What are the choices? 2 good choices, 2 good references in secondary. Choose 2 readers to read, not choose a book from the shelf. Choose 2 puzzles, not choose 100 puzzles. No choice is a good choice for a student with autism spectrum. Neurotypical kids love choice. ASD kids find choices overwhelming, and ADHD kids will change their mind 1,000 times a day. And number 7, ensure your instructions are clear. Now, I know you think your instructions are clear, but really, are they really clear? Have you given them time to process the instructions? If I gave you 4 instructions now, my guess is you'll forget them. I do activities at my workshops when I do go into schools, where I give staff, I would literally say, write the number on the person next to you, piece of paper, put your hands on your shoulders, count, write the number, put hands on shoulders, and you will, unbelievable. Normally only 3% of staff remember the hands on shoulders, because they're distracted doing a task, because there were too many instructions. They're already counting and they weren't listening to the final instruction. So think about how you can break tasks down and give clear instructions. And of course, have them written down wherever possible. The more written tasks that they can refer back to, the better. Now, number 3, oh no, we've done that one. Number 3, lack of clarity and direction. Number 4, positive reinforcement is not used enough. I can't emphasize enough the importance of positive reinforcement. Now, in the big blue book, page 28 to 30, there's a whole section on how to identify rewards, how to use rewards. There's lots of information. And those of you who have Anna Tulliman's and my Essential Guide to Secondary, we've got a really good section on rewards. But my favourite part of that is use their special interest, no matter how bizarre. Use their special interest, no matter how bizarre. And you can use their special interest in every subject. And we would give an example in there of using string in maths, science, English, that you'd be amazed, all the string that there is in the world. So use their special interest no matter how bizarre. So the thing to remember about rewards is the task must be achievable. So small task, small reward. That must be very clear what they need to do to get the reward. Because remember, these kids are literal. So if you say neat work and they make a mistake, they'll have a meltdown because now they think they missed out on the reward because their work's not neat because now there's a mistake. Can you see how we can get into a cycle there? So if you say neat work and they have one little dot on their page, for them, that little dot, it's not neat anymore. They'll rip it up. They'll give up. So be very careful what language you use. And this all links together. Can you see how things are starting to link together? Most students need small task and a small reward. And once they've developed success and confidence, then you can extend the time. Small task, small reward. Then slowly build it up. And here's the hard part. Rewards wear out. So you need to use a range of rewards. So if I have a student who loves Minecraft, I might use reading a Minecraft book. I might use a Minecraft puzzle. I might use a Minecraft word find. I might use a Minecraft colouring in. I might use a Minecraft cheat sheet, like downloading some cheat sheets they can read. I can use Minecraft in 1,000 different ways. If I have a student who loves horses, I might have some little toy horses they can play with. I might have a book on horses. I might have a colouring in. I might have a dot to dot on horses. I might have a word find on types of horses. All of those are rewards. Like my kids would love that. And it's not that hard. Just get on Pinterest. You can find so much of this already pre-made. Unbelievable. Like Pinterest, I wish I'd had it when I first started teaching. There's so many good ideas in there. I can just click and download. So good. Okay, back to our thing. Number 5. Task is not broken down into small enough steps. So this is called task analysis. And when I was at uni doing disability studies, I remember we had to break down boiling an egg, and we had to break it down into 100 steps. So remember, everything needs to be broken down into micro steps for many of my kids. So for example, you think telling a student to pick up a pencil, that's not a hard task. Pick up a pencil, Actually, that's really hard. First, you have to scan the table. Then you have to find the pencil amongst the other objects on the table. You have to move your hand towards the pencil. How many of your kids go to get the pencil, it rolls off the table? You have to pick up the pencil without knocking the other objects. Yes, and a lot of my kids have trouble with the spatial awareness of that. And then you have to get the pencil and put it in the right grip before you can even start work. All that planning, and we all do it so naturally. And for many of my students who struggle with gross and fine motor skills, they'll be falling off their chair and you'll be like, what are you doing? And it's like, I was just getting my pencil. How did the chair flip when you're just getting your pencil? Well, that is because there's so many micro tasks every day we take for granted. So remember, if you're going to teach them something, you might need to break it down into those micro tasks. And really, that's why sitting back and observing, like I said, in the keeping on task, stop and observe. Is there too much stuff out on their desk? Is that why they're always losing things? Have a think. What are the things you can do to help them? But when you are using rewards, make sure it's achievable. When you're breaking tasks down, put yourself in the student's shoes. When you're encouraging independence, really notice give them that time to process. So I'm hoping you've got some good ideas on how to engage disengaged students. But remember to really think about those 5 areas and make sure you download the blog or go to my podcast and reread those barriers and think about each student, because my guess is each of them have different things. So number 1, fear of failure. Number 2, lack of direction. Number 3, lack of clarity in the direction. Number 4, positive reinforcement's not used enough. And number 5, the task is not broken down into small enough steps. Now, if you want to know more about any of these things, I highly recommend you look in my books. So either the Ultimate Guide to School and Home, the Red and Blue Teacher Assistant books, or the Early Years books has some good ideas. All of my books really are about engaging and increasing participation. Hope you've got some good tips from today, but I just wanted to leave you on one little reminder that small steps of success are better than a giant leap of failure. What can you do in the next week to set this kid up for success? To let them experience a positive environment? How can we ensure they start to feel more confident having a go and become more engaged? Because disengaged learners are often from that constant failure and feeling like there's just too many obstacles. So what are the things you can put in place to overcome those 5 areas and obstacles that Skinner identified? Best of luck. I'd love you to share in my Facebook podcast community any of the tips or strategies you used. And don't forget, if you use Instagram, to follow me on sue.larkey. I'm putting up lots of videos and different things on there. I'm having fun doing it. I'm getting better. Like now I'll video a little bit about this podcast to go on there to remind you to listen. And I've been taking people on walks with me around Sydney. So please make sure you join me on Instagram. It's just sue.larkey. Hope to see you guys in Instagram. And let me know if you want me to, any ideas for videos you'd love to see. Take care. I hope you've got some great tips and strategies to make a difference. Remember, strategies wear out and not every strategy works for everybody. If you're ready to dive in deeper to more strategies and ideas to make a difference, I'd highly recommend you consider Dr. Tony Attwood or my online courses. For more information, visit my website www.suelarkey.com.au.